Hey guys, Scott here. I've been in property a long time. Now honestly, there are not many things that still shock me. I've seen rate hikes, booms, slowdowns. I have watched governments announce housing policies like they're handing out flyers. But every now and then, they pull something so quiet, so technical, and so easy to miss that even the people in the industry can actually get caught off guard. Not because we're careless, but because it's not explained clearly. And it's not talked about enough. And that is what I want to talk about today. Now, I was chatting to someone recently who's looking to invest in Victoria. Good person, smart, doing their best, working hard. And the more we spoke, the more I realized they had no idea what taxes could apply to them once they owned land. Not because they are lazy, but because no one teaches you this stuff. And then it hit me. If one everyday investor is about to make a big decision without knowing the tax rules, there are probably thousands of people doing the same thing right now. So today, I'm going to break down one tax that catches people by surprise in Victoria. What it is, who it hits, how it works, and why it becomes a nasty problem if you do not see it coming. And quick one, I do these videos every day on property, money, the economy, and the stuff the media barely explains. So if you want daily updates, hit subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss one of my daily updates. All right, let's get into it. In Victoria, there is a tax called the Windfall gains tax. It applies when land gets rezoned, and that rezoning increases the value of the land. So picture this, you own a block of land or a farm, let's say. Today it is zoned one way, then the government changes the zoning. Suddenly you can do more with that land. And because of that, the value on paper jumps up. The government's logic is simple. They say that paper uplift happened because of a government decision, so the government wants to share on that uplift. Now the key thresholds matter. If the uplift is under $100,000, there is no windfall gains tax. If it is between $100,000 and $500,000, there is a tax rate that applies to that band. And once the uplift goes above $500,000, the rate becomes 50% on the amount above the threshold. So yes, in some real situations, the government can end up taking around half of the value increase that came from the rezoning. Now here is the part that most people do not expect. This is not like capital gains tax, where you sell, you make the gain, and then you deal with the tax. With windfall gains tax, the liability can arise when the rezoning happens, not when you sell. So you can be sitting there holding the land long term, not planning to sell, don't even want to sell, not planning to cash out, and suddenly you've got a tax bill on that land that you still own today that you're not even planning to sell. And I want you to really feel just how weird and strange that is. You might not have received a cent in cash, you haven't sold it, you don't have any extra money, but you have a tax liability because your land value changed on paper. That is why people describe it as taxing an unrealized gain. You did not realize the gain. You did not sell, but the bill can still show up. Now, Victoria does allow deferral in some cases. Some people can apply to defer payment, including potentially for a long period, often discussed as up to 30 years or until a later trigger like sale. But the big catch is this: if you defer, interest applies to the unpaid amount. And a lot of commentary describes that interest as being linked to the Victorian government long-term bond rate, often discussed around the 10-year bond rate. So the longer you sit on it, the more it grows quietly in the background. That is why this tax can feel like it comes out of nowhere. Not just because it exists, but because it can turn into a much bigger number over time if you do not deal with it early. This is not just a developer tax. This can hit regular, ordinary, everyday people who happen to own land in the wrong place at the wrong time. It can hit people on the outskirts, people holding acreage. I'm talking, small acreage, family blocks, farming families, people who have owned land for decades. And the frustrating part is this: a lot of people will not even hear about it until they are already in the process of selling or refinancing or trying to do something with their land. And then suddenly they are learning a brand new rule while money is actually on the line. This is why I'm making noise about this, because if nobody talks about it, people walk into it blind. So here is the main message today. Be vigilant. Ask questions. If you're investing in land or even thinking about it, you cannot just look at the suburb, the growth potential, and the pretty brochure. You have to understand the tax system. This is key. You should seek out experts to look at everything that you're doing and understand the taxes going in, the taxes during the holding period, and any exit taxes, and any of these strange, weird taxes. Now, you need to do this in the state you are buying in, and the planning rules that can change the value of the land overnight. This is why financial education matters so much, and having your experts at hand is very important. You do not want to be that person who gets hit with a tax bill and goes, wait, what the hell is this? And where did this come from? You do not want to be a deer in the headlights. So talk to your accountant, your advisors, your property advisors, talk to someone that you trust, someone that's got experience. Ask the boring questions before you commit. Do your research, run scenario analysis. That's why it's really important to have tools that can do that analysis, and also experts that are up to date with all the latest changes, because there are a lot of changes happening all the time. And make sure the numbers still work, even if the government might change a few rules halfway through the game. Because right now, governments are under massive pressure, budgets are stretched, and they are getting very creative about where they pull money from out of the tax system, which is basically money out of your hands into theirs. So that is the windfall gains tax, guys, in Victoria, and why you need to know it exists before you make a land decision. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you heard about this tax before today? And do you think more states over time are going to copy this? Let me know in the comments, because I read them and I genuinely want to know what you think. And if you want daily updates on property, money, and the economy, and the rules that can blindside you, any changes to the tax system, for example, hit subscribe and hit the bell button so you do not miss a video. I'll see you guys at the next one.